What is up, the Science Flipping podcast family? We are back with another incredible guest. I am very impressed by this individual who is 24 years old. He has done over 85 million on the retail side of sales with his real estate agents and brokerage. He holds over $8 million of real estate assets in his own portfolio and is actively transacting on wholesales, fix and flips. Currently, my man Cameron Burke is in the house. What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, I've been in this game. I'm considered an old head, right? I've been in this game now for 18 plus years, going on 19, going on 20, right? Just seems like almost as long as you've been alive. You are 24 years old and you've accomplished more than probably I did in the first 12 years of my business, right? And so I just think it's incredibly impressive. I really wanted you on this episode. But let's talk to that. What does it take to be a 24-year-old to have this level of ambition, this level of sacrifice? What have you gone through to achieve what you've achieved?
Thank you, dude. Well, I think it's your typical story of kind of had a rough upbringing, and it primed me up to be able to come out the gate at 18 and start doing deals. I would say that's a benefit for guys that have grown up a little bit rougher. By no means did I have like the roughest childhood at all, but like quick synopsis, lived with my mom from 14 to 17. Um, this was before marijuana was legal in Oklahoma, and her main thing was bringing drugs back to Oklahoma City, and selling them off. And so I kind of grew up in that, helping her. I didn't know better. I was 14, 15, 16 years old, you know what I mean? So I want to help my mom out. And I grew up, going to Chicago, going to Oregon, going to California, bringing back 30, 40, 50 pounds of weed at a time.
And you were really helping out. You weren't just
helping out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't do any drugs. I didn't drink. I still don't drink. I still don't do any drugs because I kind of just had a lot of anxiety from that when I was younger. But I lived with my mom. We did that. She went to prison when I was 17 for conspiracy of smuggling 2,000 kilos and money laundering. And so anyway, she went to prison. At that time, I was my mom was renting my grandma's, one of her houses. And so I lived on my own for 8 months roughly. And I can't say it wasn't kind of nice. It was nice. I was like early 17. I lived on my own. My wife now, we were together at the time. We're just kind of getting together. And before you knew it, my grandma had found out that I was living on my own. She moved back in. And long story short, that relationship just didn't work out that well. I had some issues. She had some issues. And I moved in with my wife and my in-laws now, like kind of middle of 17. And so I lived with them. At that time, I didn't quite want them supporting me, even though they were putting a roof over my head and they were supporting me. And so I had a little Mercedes that my mom had bought. It's like a 2008, SUV. It's worth $5,000. Sold it for $5,000. And then I started buying and selling vehicles at the insurance auction. And so I'd buy one at a time, I'd sell it, and I'd buy another and I'd sell it. And so me and B, which what I call my wife, we were in all the same classes. And so we were taking concurrent classes and of course we were in high school classes together enrolled. So we just roll in her vehicle. And so I did that for a couple years. I bought and sold right around 10, right before I graduated. And then kind of senior year, we started buying and selling refrigerators. And so we'd go down to Garland, Texas, and a buddy of mine would buy 6 to 10 refrigerators at a time. You buy them on liquidation.com. This is before COVID. Like 2019 is when I graduated. So it was like right in there. So we buy them $200-300 a piece and bring them back here and sell them for $600 or $700 a piece. Typically we'd have like one or two that wouldn't work. And so anyways, that was kind of the trajectory. I was always trying to wheel and deal. I was always trying to get deals done. I had an issue with authority just because of how I grew up and how my mom was and always getting in trouble. And then she went to prison. And so I knew that I didn't want to work for anybody, which was really just like an issue that I had to grow through. Because even though I don't technically work for anybody, I still work for my team. I still work for my clients. I still work for, the people around me now. which I've matured out and I've kind of worked through some of those issues. But, at that time, I just didn't want to work for anybody. I had my head set on that. I'd grown up, before I moved in with my mom, I'd grown up in a mobile home with my dad, didn't really have any money. And then when I moved in with my mom around 14, it was kind of a boom. It was fast money, so it was, even though she was making a lot of money, it was, drug money just really isn't like, it's not real wealth, and so order a bunch of stuff or we're
Shock.
going to, yeah,
Not
exactly.
real wealth.
And then it was gone,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of how I grew up, kind of a weird relationship with money, never quite got taught how to use money correctly. And, but I did watch those around me and kind of what not to do, and so we graduated. I was trying to drop ship. I think every 18-year-old was trying to drop ship back in.
Well, I got caught in that same thing,
Dude, yeah,
bro. It didn't mean if you were young. I got caught in it too.
yep, everybody. It was the fad. I mean, it still kind of is, it's had its like ups and downs. So I was really trying to do anything that made money. In high school, I did fairly well. I was valedictorian, got good grades. So, come 18, everybody's going to college, everybody's going to Votech, everybody has a path. And I'm like, what am I gonna do here? Like I don't know what I'm doing. Drop shipping wasn't working. Funny enough, I spent all my money on drop shipping. I was failing. I didn't understand business. I didn't have the fundamentals in front of me. I kind of understood the marketing piece. So at one point I'd ripped off this, like, they call it a dermaplaner. Like women use them, dermaplaner, where they can like shape their face.
Okay.
Ripped this off, off of, Alibaba or whatever. And I started doing like $500 a day in sales for like a week. And I was like, I've made it. This
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah.
I'm 17, coming up on 18 at the time. And then I get a cease and desist from like this skincare company. Like, we're pretty much going to sue you, shut everything down. And after that, I was pretty defeated. I put the drop shipping down. I was still kind of buying and selling, whether it was tires or refrigerators, but I needed something. And real estate was just that stepping stone. It was like either be a realtor or I don't know. I didn't really have another path other than that. And so long story short, got licensed. We were still living with my in-laws at the time. And so I like to bring that up because I am young. I've done a lot of deals and I've had a little bit of leg up. You know what I mean? I was able to live with them past high school for a year. We lived with them up until we were, coming up on 19. And so that made a big difference, allowed us to really snowball our money. Um, and so first 8 months, I didn't sell any real estate. I, once again, just thought there would be clients everywhere, but I didn't realize, when I'm shaved, I look about 15. Uh, but I didn't realize that the clients weren't everywhere. And it's really hard to sell real estate when you've never bought or sold a house yourself. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't feel like I even deserved to work with people, And so, um, from there, sold one house. It was a family friend that it was pretty much a pity sale. And I was pretty pissed off about that because I was like, these people only used me because they knew who I was, and they wanted to give me a leg up. And I wasn't a huge fan of that, which I do really appreciate them for it. But it was an ego thing. I wanted to actually like provide my value. And so I just happened upon this lease purchase company here in Oklahoma City. And I took the marketing skills from when I was drop shipping, started marketing with that lease purchase company. And I think this is maybe April. I hadn't done any sales in from January to April of 2021. And then I sold like just under 10 million by end of year with this lease purchase company.
Mm.
And so I've kind of gotten some traction. I made over 100 grand. I think I made 120, 130. I'm 19 at the time, and so anyways, I just reinvest everything. And then the next year I did 14 million. And so then I jumped up. I think I did like 180, 190,000 in sales. And that's when I started buying real estate. We bought a duplex. We bought our first house on a lease purchase, actually, through that lease purchase company. And then I really dove into the creative finance. And actually, this is my team right here, Creative Homes Group. We're here in Oklahoma City. So I've
Nice.
grown this team over the past 5 years, really. I'm out of sales now. All I do is buy and sell real estate. My team does the sales. We've got 8 agents. We've done 160 transactions, 155 transactions year to date. Did about 30 million sales last year. And then this year, we're on track, hopefully, to do 35, 40 million sales. So that's kind of the trajectory, brother.
Yeah,
And
dude, let
well,
me unpack a lot of this, right? Because I just think it's so dynamic and not nearly the same because it's not quite as, I guess, dramatic as your story, but I had a, alcoholic mother, father, and stepfather, and so I did not have an easy childhood either. Yours is a lot more extreme, I would argue. Uh,
It's all perspective.
but, listen, I find the bigger I get, right, with my brand and being around those, that have, some level of hyper success, the anomaly is the person who doesn't have a challenging childhood. I find those to be the very few.
For sure.
More often than not, those that reach some pretty high levels of success have some level of a story. And, what I say, to you is the same thing think about myself is you kind of create a chip on your shoulder when you go through that.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say I wanted to be seen. I knew I was of value and deserved to be loved, even though my mother and father and stepfather chose alcohol over me, essentially. I knew that I wanted admiration. I knew I could go do, I could, in Ed Milet's terms, I could go be the one, right, to change the trajectory of what we were doing as a family. And I find over and over and over again, as I do these podcasts and as I surround myself with people of high success, your story, my story, and stories similar tend to find the people that find success. Do you feel like for you that leaned into like your drive?
100%, bro. I tell people this all the time, and I'm grateful for exactly how my childhood played out,
Mhm.
and so it's one of those things that, like, and I definitely haven't had it's all perspective. Everybody's had their own challenges. Everybody goes through their own stuff, so I don't wanna sit here and say I had the worst childhood ever because I really didn't, and I had a lot of blessings in there as well, especially with B and my in-laws and stuff like that, and for me, I think a lot of it boils down to when you suffer it at a younger age, you grow up sooner. So by the time I was like 16, I wasn't wanting to go party and do all this stuff. I want to make money, and from like 16 to 18, what was difficult for me is as I'm buying and selling vehicles, as I'm buying and selling cars and stuff, I felt like an adult, even though I really wasn't. But I couldn't get emancipated, and so I didn't have the same rights as an adult. And so I bring in $4,000 or $5,000 in cash in my local bank, and they'd think I was a drug dealer, and
Mm.
they're being prejudiced against me, and so. But anyways, I think a lot of it boils down to just growing up sooner than the average person. So like when I was 18, I probably was ahead of the curve because of that, and I think a lot of the other guys that are in our similar situations are. And then beyond that, bro, like, there's just not that much to lose. Like, when you've really gone through the shit, I think a lot of success comes down to just doing the work. A lot of people get analysis paralysis, and so, like, guys like me and you that are quote unquote successful, we've just done the work, because it's like, well, what's the worst case scenario? And we just send it. So, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, listen, you are very active still to this very day, but to become a leader when you don't have the role models as a child to be a leader, that is a unique trait, right? You've been able to have, you say you have eight agents right now working with you at Creative. What's the company's name? Creative what?
Creative Homes Group.
Creative Homes Group in Oklahoma City.
Yes, sir.
Uh, there's a difference between being a producer and then being a manager and then being a leader.
Yeah.
They're totally different characteristics. And so what I'm seeing from a 24-year-old man that I'm looking at right now is you've turned yourself into a leader without much, if any, help. Where are you getting the skill sets, right? To not just be the producer, which is just hard work. Put your head down, do it, fuck it up enough. You're going to win along the way. You're going to learn what you fucked up, and then you're going to take the good stuff and keep doing that. But then you have to go recruit, you have to go manage and make sure they're doing the thing they're doing, and then you have to go lead them to the promised land, right?
Yep.
Where are you getting these skill sets along this way?
I've definitely had some role models through the thick of this. A lot. I've seen a lot what to do and what not to do. And so like kind of as I grew up, I watched my parents. They were alcoholics. My mom was on drugs, and so I watched that, and I've never touched it. And I tell people I probably if I drank, I probably like it too much. And so I learned what not to do, and so I've tried to watch that around me as well. And so like the trajectory, 19, I come out. and I do that 9 million in sales. It was a really good year, but I was working so much. I was working 7 hours or 7 days a week. I was working 10, 12 hours a day, and I was really running myself into the ground. And there was a cost to that. And I've had some health issues that thankfully I've worked through. But like I've had blood pressure issues as a 24-year-old, which is not common. So that's something that like I run really, really high or really hot. And I've had to dial that back over the last year, really be strategic in like the way that I scale now. And so I'll get into that here in a second. But I had that year, and at the time, I feel like any 18, 19-year-old, they're like, I just want to make $10,000 in a month. That was like really the goal, and I once again had a lot of maturing to do. And so I remember the month that I made $10,000 and nothing changed in my life. You know what I mean? Like nothing changed. And I realized that I was going after more of like an extrinsic motivation rather than an intrinsic motivation. And obviously it wasn't a midlife crisis, but I felt like I was having one, because I was like, what now? Like this was my goal for so long, because it seemed so intangible with the way that I grew up to be able to make that amount of money. And so anyways, I did that, did a lot of thinking. I had like a little bit of a rut that I had to pull myself out of because I didn't quite understand why I was doing what I was doing. And then I realized that I like helping people, which is why I've grown my team. That, and I like making money too. So that's the other reason. But I like helping people, and I've really truly come to like enjoy the work, and so 19, we joined the Levinson team here in Oklahoma City. And so top team, number one team in Oklahoma City. At the time I was reaching out to Terry Levinson. I was saying, hey, can I post your listings on Facebook? Because what I do is I take other realtors' listings because I didn't have any. And then I go market them with this lease purchase program to clients that couldn't get traditional financing. So bank financing, maybe they had challenged credit, challenged work history. And so my niche was working with individuals who other agents didn't want to work with. And so I was reaching out to Tara Levinson, and then finally she's like, hey, let's set up a time to meet, which in my world was crazy. These people were from Edmond. They were, I'm from little town Hera, didn't know a millionaire, and here they are wanting to meet with me. And so I went and met with them. We joined their team. They showed us, Peter and Tara Levinson, their husband and wife, they showed us a lot of guidance, they really on how to lead correctly. And so I was able to kind of model that and watch how they had led their team and how they'd grown that over time. And being able to learn from somebody like that really fast tracks a lot, and so that fast tracked quite a bit. And I've had a ton of other leaders outside of them, but they were kind of like the backbone to being able to scale. And so I watched their team and I was like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
I remember we went to Maui. Me and my wife went to Maui. I like to take nice vacations. So that's like one thing I do spend money on. And so we went to Maui, I think 3 years ago, and that's when I proposed. And so I proposed to my wife, and on that trip, I had like this deal fall apart. I was working half the time. It really pissed me off because I wanted to enjoy my time. And here I am, working in the middle of this. And that's when I realized I'm like, I don't really have business here. Like I absolutely don't have business. I need more leverage. And I understood the power of like leverage and how it could help me out. And so I came back, really put my head down, and I just reinvested. Like the first hire I made was a transaction coordinator, and then the second hire was a personal assistant. And then from there, we've hired, property manager, and everybody's in house now. And then I have a project manager as well. And so just continuing to leverage out. But to answer your question, definitely the people around me. And then, yeah, I don't think people give enough grace to like role models online. Like Alex Hormozy, watch him a lot. I've watched his trajectory over the last couple of years, and he's not the only guy. But I would say that I've got mentors that I've never met that I just soak up information. Watch and listen to a lot of YouTube. I get asked a lot, like from my YouTube channel, like what books have you read? I wish I was a bigger reader. I don't dislike reading. I actually do like it, but I feel like I'm so fast paced that it's either listen to audiobooks or listen to YouTube videos. And I listen to a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff like that. And so I've learned a lot through that. And so that's That's one of the blessings I've had just being born in this, like, whatever I am, Gen X, Gen Z, whatever, is we are the information age. And now that we have ChatGPT and pretty much all the information that we need in front of us, there's no reason that anybody can't go out and get it done.
So with your team right now, this is how you broke into the space. It sounds like based around even the name of your company, you guys are still heavily doing creative finance deals.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you still looking at that lease option stuff and working those angles? Talk to us about that because I think it's an angle in the real estate space, especially in today's economy. And I don't know how your business is doing and what it's looking like right now, but with the interest rates where they're at currently, with the challenges in the economy, I mean, I just feel like this is a much easier way for buyers to be able to still buy and sellers to be able to still sell.
Yep, 100%. So when I got into real estate, everybody's like, "You gotta call your sphere." I didn't have a sphere. I didn't grow up with a family, so I didn't even know other parents and stuff, so I barely knew anybody when I graduated. And, so everybody's telling me, "Call your sphere." Well, if I call the people I know from high school, they're all 19, you know what I mean? So they're all,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do there? And, it kinda irritated me. I didn't wanna be known as the guy that called other guys up and said, "Hey, please work with me because we know each other." I
Sure.
wanted to provide value to the market, I didn't want people working with me. It gives me an ick feeling, you know what I mean? Like, I want people to work with me for who I am because I am the best, And so, it took me a while to build up that confidence, but once I figured out the creative financing, then I felt like I could actually provide value to the market. Like, here I am, um, I can help you because the other agent couldn't because you have a 600 credit score and nobody knows what to do with that. Or, you've had an eviction in the last 2 years, but you make good money. Or a lot of times it's business owners. We work with a ton of business owners that write off too much on their taxes. They
100.
don't, yeah, they don't understand that they can do bank statement loans. We have owner finance options. We have, lease option. And there's kind of like there's a scale. You either pay more in taxes and get easier financing, or you pay less in taxes and then the financing piece is a little bit harder. Most business owners go, pay less in taxes and the financing piece is a tad harder. So there are plenty of programs out there, non-QM products, non-qualifying mortgages do that could get you qualified based off of your actual income that most people don't know about. And so we market to those individuals, and we're the guys that help when other agents can't. And so we step in and work with the clients that other agents can't get the deals done. And a lot of those, medical marijuana is really popular. It was really popular back in 2021, 2022. It kind of started to taper off because of the regulation here in Oklahoma City. But we worked with a ton of medical marijuana growers, being able to get them into houses because banks won't finance that income.
Mm.
We worked with a lot of people that got into trouble during COVID, missed credit card, bills, but still make good income. Truck drivers, nurses, stuff like that, to make 6, 7, $8,000 a month, but maybe just had a couple month hiccup, and they can't go and buy a house through traditional financing. And that is our niche. We've done a lot of it, and that's what we're known for here in Oklahoma City.
So if you can you do what you do anywhere? Can anyone do what you do?
I think so. So you would have to go out and you need to find the local lease purchase, seller finance, non-QM options in your area. And, like Berry Rock Homes is one of the companies that we use. I know the owners super well. We've probably done more deals with them than anybody in any of their markets. But they're in Oklahoma City. They're in I think 4 or 5 other states. I think they're in Florida now, and so they're an option, but there are other options out there.
And what do they do? Are they the ones that own the home that are willing to sell it off seller finance? Is that what you're saying? Or
So
what does Berry Rock do?
their program's really interesting. What they do is you come in and they qualify you based off your income, and they say, okay, 7% down of any home price, and we will buy the home on your behalf. You negotiate it as if you're the owner. We're gonna buy it, and then we will close on it. You move in with the lease option, and then when you are ready to buy it, that 7% is your lease option, and you buy it back from us. And so it's a really cool program. Not only their home, I mean, they don't have inventory. They allow you to go pick out your own. And so that's how they have structured their company as a whole. So they're really interesting. There are other companies out there. I think Home Path. I mean, I would look up lease purchase companies in market or owner finance properties in market. And I would figure out what companies are doing those types of deals. But let's just say somebody's out there and they don't have a lease purchase or owner finance option in their market. Then the other option would be just get connected with the non-QM brokers, the ones that can do DSCR loans, which are really heavy right now. And then bank statement loans, like 12-month bank statement loans, are really popular as well. And so, yes, I would say for sure, Justin, it just depends on what programs are available where they're at.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of what you do may or may not change if by the way, I think it's a really big if anything happens with interest rates. How do you think you're going to pivot if that happens? In my own belief, just so we're clear, I think we got 12 months of nothing happening. I think people think the Fed rate dropping to zero or whatever is going to do anything. It won't. It doesn't actually directly affect the 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
The 10-year bond does. So, people are all caught up with the Fed, but that's not the reality of what can help the housing industry this moment. So if something happened, which is a big if, how do you pivot? Or do you not?
Yeah, so I mean, we keep doing what we're doing because I was doing these types of deals in 2021 when rates were 0, 2%. And I'm doing them today when rates are 7%. Nothing has changed
Hmm.
other than having to get better at converting, and so that is always going to be important, is knowing how to convert. And so Peter's always had this saying that I kind of live by, is like, the market doesn't dictate how much income we can do. It just dictates how we do business in general. And so if we shift, then we'll just increase our marketing from where we're at. But nothing will change because there's one thing that unfortunately I know won't change, and that's people will continue to need bank statement options, business owners, and then people will continue to have credit issues. I mean, it's always been an issue and always will be an issue. And especially right now, it's actually more of an issue. And so we just have to get in front of those clients, which we do through our marketing.
And
So
then let's talk about your marketing. I'm actually curious about it personally.
yeah.
I own a decent amount of rentals. I would
Mhm.
be interested in saying, hey, if someone's out there willing to buy at a number that I want and it can financially make sense to them, how do I go find them? What would I do? I'm thinking about right this second, we did this refi with Kiavi into DSCR. There's 5 homes that I own. I'd be willing to sell them. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, how would I go find someone to buy those without just listing it on the MLS?
Yeah. So you're saying you'd sell or finance them, you'd carry the note?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I do that here in Oklahoma City as well. It's the highest cash on cash return that I can find at
no
the
doubt.
moment is seller financing. So typical terms, like for an owner finance deal, is 10% down, 20-year note at 12% interest. I mean, that's what I seller finance all my deals on. I don't have a prepayment penalty. I don't typically require. I want people to be able to pay the properties off whenever they like, because I get my equity priced in when I sell the note. And so I'm pricing in 30% when I sell the note. So if they pay me off, it's like, okay, I'll just take that 30% equity that I had and I'll go buy another deal at that point. So I don't have a prepayment penalty. But I mean, we're super heavy on meta ads. So Instagram, Facebook, we run a ton of meta that seems to work really well. And then just my positioning, I've got a small audience on Facebook and a lot of people know what I do. And so we get referrals from agents, we get referrals where we just get homeowners that come to us directly. And then through our meta ads, we generate anywhere from 550 to 650 leads a month for this type of niche.
For a seller finance buyer.
I mean, really just creative home options. So seller finance, lease purchase, bank statement loans, stuff like that. And then we educate from there.
I love the ad play. I don't think there's enough agents out there.
Yeah.
You're an investor and an agent. I think this is where I want everyone to understand the dynamic business he has built. I'm a massive advocate of agents and investors need to get along way better, right? There's
Yes.
this unfortunate divide between us. And I think some of it has to do with shitty investors who just have
Yeah.
tarnished our name as investors. And it is what it is. But the good investors like myself or you and many others can try to repair that. And because I think agents feel like we're coming after them and trying to steal their business. That's not the case either, right? Typically, we try to do deals that they don't really want to be dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Typically. And so I think there's just this, and you've collaborated even within your own business on here's an investment and realtor space that I can actually combine the two together. And this is like, if you're a realtor out there, if you're an investor and you are considering it, like this model, what he's built is replicatable, right?
Oh, for sure.
Again, Johnny, agent from Alabama listening to this right now, could he be doing the same thing you're doing?
I don't see why not.
Right.
I think you can do it anywhere. Yeah,
Johnny, investor from Florida, could he be doing the same thing you're doing?
surely.
Why not? Right. And so that's what I'm saying is you've built this beautiful model that quite literally, whether you're licensed or not licensed, is a model that's replicatable any state, anywhere. You just need to know what Cameron built, right? But I really believe all of us listening and watching that are investors and or agents, the combination of what we do is imperative, right?
Mhm.
And so I just want to be a voice to that. Is I think there's way more money to make collaboratively than there is like siloed off. Is I'm an investor and I don't, blah about agents, or vice versa. I don't like investors. I'm an agent and I want to buy homeowner, or I want to list properties and only deal with homeowners.
Yeah,
I think it's short-sighted. I think there's a lot of people that do it and they can do it well, whatever. But the vast majority, I think, of people should be combining the skill sets, and you've done that brilliantly, dude.
thank you,
Mm.
cousin. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
well, and I think you should be a voice. I mean, you really should, and I'm excited to have you on here. But like, first of all, where can people find you if they want to reach out and just ask you questions?
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
So Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. I started my YouTube back in on June 1st. Coming off a Florida trip, decided to start the YouTube.
Workout.
We're coming up on 20,000 subscribers, so that's like I'm
Bro,
trying to get that.
just so we're clear, for all of you that have no idea how hard YouTube is, I've had a YouTube channel for I don't even know, and I'm still not at 20,000 subscribers. So you are doing something right in the YouTube space. It is by far the hardest. I don't even want to call it social media, but it's by far the hardest one out of all the verticals, TikTok and Instagram, for growth, by far. So good job.
I appreciate that. So YouTube, definitely trying to grow that. Facebook is where I've really grown most of my following. So it's just Cameron Burke on Facebook. There are a couple. I've got right around 39,000 friends or whatever. And
There
so
you go.
that's one that's me. And then on Instagram, it's just c.burkee. It's my Instagram handle.
Say that again. So do Facebook and Instagram again.
Okay, so Facebook, Cameron Burke. So Cameron, and then Burke. And then on Instagram, it's just c.burke. So C.
Burke.
Yep. Yeah, it'll pop up.
Perfect.
Yes,
So
sir.
I want to lean into this idea of your age.
Yes, sir.
It just impresses the daylights out of me, right? Because I'll tell you, especially now knowing your background with your mom and everything, bro, I'm blown away. Because I remember me at 24 and I was a full idiot at 24. Just exactly who you weren't or who you aren't right now, because you are 24 right now. I was the guy, like, I didn't really, I was just, I was doing door-to-door sales. I was making money. I was hustling. But like, of course, every weekend drinking. And of course, every, just your more typical 24-year-old activities than you are doing.
Yeah.
What can you do to impress upon some of the younger listeners right now? Or what can you advise them? What can you say is like I really want the younger listeners to understand what you've built. You are just starting, dude. You, Cameron Burke, is just
Thank you, brother.
starting. And if some of this younger generation can understand, whether it's some work ethic or some, limiting excuses or whatever they can do at the young age, right? Like you brought up, some of the benefit for you is the social media and the virality and you guys can lean into that, where old people like me didn't even have YouTube, but when we started. And
Yeah.
so, uh, give some the younger to me, more your generation, some advice on what can they do? Where can they start? What should they be thinking about?
So here are a few principles I live by. Hopefully this isn't too drawn out, but the first one, after I had that $10,000 a month and I realized nothing really changed, I had to change the way that I thought about things and the reason why I was doing what I was doing. And so I went through a little bit of a journey trying to figure that out. And the consensus that I came upon was this, and it's that when you buy something, you have a little bit of a dopamine hit, or when I do a deal, I get a dopamine hit. I mean, everything revolves around dopamine to a certain extent. That's why short form content is so addicting nowadays, is because you get dopamine hit every time you scroll. And so what I realized is like a lot of people are chasing extrinsic motivation. So, keeping up with the Joneses, maybe a new vehicle, a new truck. They want the fancy car, they want the fancy house. But my thoughts on it, at least this is my opinion, so I could be wrong, but this is just how I look at life through my lens, is that, if I go buy a new house, I'm going to have a huge dopamine hit. But at some point, I'm going to fall back to a baseline, and so like, is that house going to serve me? Like, am I going to be that much happier in that house than I am in the house that I'm in today? Not to say that I don't want nicer things, I definitely do, but it doesn't revolve around just the nice things. I'm not doing this every day just to get a nicer vehicle or a nicer house or whatever that looks like. And so, I mean, I definitely like nice things, and like, I'm taking a trip to Maui next week. Like, where I like to spend my money is vacations, and really on experiences with my family, because I've got, me, my wife, and then I was telling you before this, I've got guardianship of my 6-year-old brother. So we like kind of have a kid, kind of don't have a kid. So I like to spend money on experiences, and then, relationships, because at the end of the day, money comes and goes, but relationships don't, experiences don't. And so I think I've just been really blessed to figure that out sooner than most younger guys. It's like the fancy truck is really cool for a couple weeks, couple months, but at some point it's going to wear off, and then you're going to want a new truck, or the nice house. At some point you're going to fall back to a baseline, and then you're going to need more dopamine. And so I just don't associate my dopamine with nice extrinsic things. Or I try not to. We all do to a certain extent. And so, like, for me, I get like my dopamine off of doing deals, helping others, leading my team, being able to hang out with my family. And so that's one thing that I will say, is that if you can focus on more of an intrinsic motivation, like who you are, helping people, the journey, relationships, experiences, then I think you're going to work harder than the next guy. And I think about it like this: if I'm waking up every day and I'm doing this for my family, I'm doing it for my team, I know I've got 20 people that rely on me performing every day, versus another guy that's waking up that just wants a Ferrari. I'm going to outwork him every single day.
Yeah.
I don't have to wake up and and when he hits that Ferrari, is he going to have to reset his goals to then strive for something larger?
Mm.
So I don't know. That might be a weird perspective, but
No,
like,
that's a brilliant perspective, dude, because it is 100% right. I've hit a lot of milestones financially where I've been able to achieve and buy the thing.
yep,
And just as you said, it is very cool. Maybe it even lasts a year. You're really
yeah,
excited about it. And then what? Now to, what else do I want? And that is a challenge for performers, for men, for the society and the image, right? And so to be able to really internally come to a place of drive and ambition and happiness, right? The whole, enjoy the journey, right? Because the end destination isn't that great. I mean, to some extent, it's not. Like, if you're not enjoying the journey to get to the end destination, then you won't enjoy the end destination, because it's fruitless, right? Dude, very wise young man you are. Wise beyond your years for sure. Probably because you had to grow up really fast. And again, I hope no one has to do what you went through or what I went through. I hope not, right? But there is light in that, and there's, incredible parts of that. So what's
yep.
the next journey for you? How are we finishing off this year as Cameron Burke? What's your mission to finish off 2025? What's your mission going into 2026? What's the agenda?
Dude, I will say my goals are constantly changing and shifting. I mean, I'm a young guy at the end of the day, and so I'm still figuring this out. I flip flop, sometimes I'm like, well, I want to make 100 grand a month. And it's like, well, and I do certain months, and then it's like, I want to do it every month. And it's like, well, why? Or does it make more sense to just go buy more real estate and hold more real estate in the holdings company? And so I'm constantly flip flopping. I've got my team. I really enjoy my team. I've focused it a lot on content this year. That's been a big goal of mine, is just growing my social medias in general. Now I'm on YouTube, and that doesn't take up a ton of time, but like, it takes up some time. I'm trying to post 2 long form videos a week, which definitely takes up time. And so I've got that, and then, we'll do 60 deals, bought, sold, or held this year, and it just depends on the deal itself. But continuing that, continuing to build relationships so I can get more deal flow. But end of this year, it's been a long year. I've definitely worked a little bit more than I wanted to, in certain aspects. Because at the end of the day, I think about it a lot. You hear about those guys that worked until they were 40 and they've got, 10, 15, $20 million worth of whatever, a business or real estate. But they've got 2 divorces and their kids never got any time, And so for me, I don't have kids, but I do have my younger brother, and I am his role model. And so, I want to show him that I work hard, but I also want to show him that it's not just about working, And so like I really try to spend time with him and leave time to be able to hang out with him. And it's been a weird transition for sure. Like it's like going from like not having a kid to having a kid almost, and even though he's not mine, I treat him as if he is, and so does my wife, and she does a great job as well. So just spending time with them, like I said, we're going to Maui next week. This can be a lot of fun. I really unplug on vacations. I pretty much I put my phone down and my team handles what needs to be handled. And then hopefully I'm going to go get an elk this year, is the goal. I'm going to go elk hunting. So I'm pretty pumped up about that. But I mean, outside of that, I want to finish the year strong. My goal this year coming into the year was to net $1 million. We're going to be close. We'll see. But now now the problem is it's like, okay, well, now we got to cost segregate. We got to go buy something big. But everybody knows that is looking for larger multifamily flex space warehouse right now, that buying something larger is not necessarily an easy task at the moment. So
No.
and so I'm kind of stuck. Like, I've built up this cash that I wanted to build all year long. It's, now we're in September. I was hoping to have this by end of July. And so I'm on a bit of time crunch. I'm going to be looking for deal flow. And then beyond that, really, Justin, is just, I'm working on a mentorship. I've got a few people that I'm mentoring here
Good.
locally. And so I've got a very small mentorship, but I'm working on building that out. I want to bring something quality to market that is kind of like my principles and fundamentals behind how I bought and sold real estate through interest rate hikes, and have done it sustainably and have grown my business, And so,
Well, I will be your biggest champion, dude. Literally. Like, we'll have a call after this and see how I can help you lean into that, because what you've done, who you are as a human, this is why I do what I do with these podcasts. This is why, like, the community I built with the guests, like, this is awesome. And I will do whatever I can to help you lean into becoming a leader in our space, because you're young. You have the right attitude about this. You look at success the right way. You have a genuine heart, dude. I will be your biggest champion and help advise you and coach you through this, as I've been around a lot longer. So
thank you.
I know what
Yes.
not to do is the key here, right?
I appreciate
So,
that.
and I'll end it with this, being 24, and I'm sure you've had a lot of people give you advice, and maybe you haven't. What would be the, most valuable advice you've been given thus far?
Leave time to think, like truly. I don't think people think enough. And nowadays with social media, with ChatGPT, we're relying on others and AI to think for us. And so leaving myself time to think, like, no distractions, no social media, no text. And that's what I really enjoy about taking vacations is I go 10 days with pretty much no phone time. That's where I get the best ideas. The last vacation I took is when I decided that I was going to go hard on YouTube. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And so leaving time to think is extremely important. And then, it's the same thing a lot of people hear, but you've got to have the confidence. And if you truly believe that you can make something happen, then I think you can. I didn't make $10,000 in a month until I believed I could. I didn't make $50,000 in a month until I believed I could, and then so on and so forth. And so, truly believing that you can go and do something is huge, and then just executing on it.
Bro, I appreciate it. There is a good book. If you do want to listen to a book, I tell you to listen to it.
Yeah.
It leans into this thinking idea. It's called The Road Less Stupid.
Okay.
Just the title I loved. The Road Less Stupid, but it's basically a guy who's done a lot. I can't remember the author's name. He's awesome. It talks a lot about the value of thinking in there, because he's made a lot of money, had a lot of success, lost it all, built it back up, lost it all, built it back, lost it. Like, he's like, the power of thinking can actually help you. So if you do have time on these flights to Hawaii, which is far, The Road Less Stupid would be a really good one for you to listen to. And that goes for everyone out there listening and watching this. Guys, this is not the last you'll see of Cameron Burke. I'll have him on again and again, as I really want to have him as a highlight to all of those out there trying to do some big stuff. Cameron, I appreciate you coming on. If this was pretty cool and you think a couple people need to hear this, please share this with 2 of your friends. Make sure you look up on Cameron on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
Thank you, Justin.